Welcome to the Blackout Live from New York with your host Tasemere, where we celebrate economics, business trends, and explore the magic that we have. I have a super special guest for you today, so I'm so excited. I'm going to bring her up so we can get talking. Hey, Kate,
Hi, how are you
how are
today?
you?
I'm good.
So we're both in Luminary today. So can you start off by just telling the folks out here what Luminary is?
Sure. Well, it's great to be here. When you asked me, I was so excited. So I'm really proud to be a guest. So I left a very long career in finance. I was in corporate investment banking for almost 20 years, and I wasn't seeing the enough investment in the pipeline for women, particularly in finance, but also more broadly in corporate America. And at the same time, I saw this huge influx of women entrepreneurs coming and saying, I need help, I need support. And then you also had women saying, I don't know what's next in my career. So they were in transition. And so I left my job in banking, wrote a business plan, which you and I have talked about how important that is, and looked at my financials and decided I wanted to build this. So we launched in January of 2019. We started as a physical space in New York, really focused on both professional and personal growth. So a platform for women, regardless of your professional journey. So it wasn't just focused on entrepreneurs or women in finance or, senior women. It was all women. And we are a Join Now community, which means there's no application process. It really helps break down barriers versus putting them up. And that's what a community does. And when we started, we knew we wanted to work with both individuals and corporates, but at the foundation of who we are was around advancing women. And so we've always welcomed men because we need them on our journey, and you'll see them around the space. But more importantly, how do we do that? How do we advance women? We do that through programming, content, collaboration within the community. And so pre-pandemic, we were running about 5 events and workshops every week. Virtually now since 2020 March, we run about 10 a week. So we've done more than 2,000 since the pandemic started. And even though you and I, as an example, are both in the physical space, we're now in more than 30 countries virtually and have several thousand members. And we're excited about 2022 and seeing where we could go.
So can we back up just a little bit? Because that was like a mouthful of the journey. But just in the very early stages, when you had that idea and said, I think this is what I want to do, and then you had to take the leap. What was that like? If you can go back to that time, how were you feeling?
Every emotion that you can think of on the negative side. So yes, was I excited? Yeah, but I would actually put that at the bottom of the list because I'm a Gen Xer. So it was, oh my gosh, I'm taking away this massive milestone of just climbing the corporate ladder. And that's what I had been used to for 22 years. I was scared. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was depressed. It was the first time I hadn't really worked full time, 80 hours a week since I was in my early 20s. And it was a shock to the system, to be quite honest. And that roller coaster that I heard about for entrepreneurs, where it's you're sort of, climbing and then the down, never the high. I was experiencing a lot of lows. I think until I really fleshed out the business plan, looked at the financials, created the financials, and understood what it was going to take to build a business, did I really start to get super excited. Concept wise, I was like, this is going to work. I know it. But it is hard to get out of your comfort zone. And I always say you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But man, was I uncomfortable and I'm still uncomfortable, right? I don't know it all, and it's a tough journey as an entrepreneur or any type of business owner. And so those were some of the emotions that I felt when I left. And I still, Tasemere, feel those same emotions. I think you always second guess and say, oh, what, and especially during the pandemic. But I know the impact we're having. So I'm staying the course.
Did you feel at all like the support of people, places in your previous journey of working those 80 hours a week? Were people looking at you saying, Cate, are you crazy?
Yes, 100%.
Or were they kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna ride this out with you? Or were they kind of in the middle?
So I think, it's interesting. I think when I first started talking about the idea, I will say a lot of the women in my network, particularly in the finance world, were like, this is amazing. You're actually taking a risk. And we've all talked about it. I think the men were like, wow, and you're doing it with your own money. Why? And then there were those in the middle. I mean, I have to say, my mentors, many of my mentors, and the majority of them being men, were like, this is amazing. We're so supportive. How can we help? And so I carry a lot of stock in obviously these mentoring relationships that I have developed over the last 20 something years. And so hearing that, I think also when I wrote the business plan, I started to socialize it. I not the full business plan, but the concept and sort of what I was building. And I wanted to hear what people thought. So it's interesting though, I was thinking about this weekend. Once I left the banking world, there was a pretty big sever in, I think, a lot of those relationships, for good or bad. I think people just thought, well, you're no longer in the banking world now. I move on. You can't relate to what I'm going through. I can't relate to you. So that's been a little bit eye-opening, but for those that I wanted to continue to cultivate, I have.
Yeah, I experienced that same thing of like loss of friendships and relationships that you kind of thought, hey, this was going to be here for forever. There was no way that you thought like this person wouldn't want to go out for dinner or, respond to an email or pick up a phone call or send a text. But then you start feeling like, wow, this is really changing. And it makes you kind of have to grieve those relationships, which I think is something that we don't talk about in entrepreneurship.
Totally. And I think there's just shock to the system on both sides of the relationship. And maybe it was superficial in that you commiserated over work, right? Of all your bad boss or your good boss or, organization reorgs, all of those things. I think that's also what brings you together. That's why we say, people say I have a work wife or a work husband. You kind of bond over that. The minute that bond is kind of broken and that you're not both in that same environment, I think things change, and that's okay. That's an evolution of a relationship. I will say that there are some from way back in my early banking days also that have sort of resurfaced and have followed me throughout my journey and are now saying, wait a second, what? You did this massive thing. One, why? And two, you gave up all that money. But three, like, keep going. And I think that, in addition to obviously all of the community at Luminary, I think that's what does keep me going, is that affirmation that I'm on the right path.
So how does it feel carrying this pressure of inspiring other women? Because I'm sure that you have women that are like, Cate, I want to be like you. How do you manage those expectations and how do you reflect on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I would say be careful what you wish for, in that when you lead an organization and a company, and this, being an entrepreneur yourself, there is a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure to perform. You can't really hide under the safety net of you're working for a company and they have had changes. Like, you own that. So that is definitely, for me, I think, added pressure, and I'm very honest about that. I think then you add the complexity of people saying, wow, I look up to you, or I'm inspired by you. And I think, I mean, listen, I look up to many people and I'm inspired by many people. I think I had that in my corporate world. It's just different now. And there's different motivation for why there's an admiration or an inspiration, but it's definitely pressure. And I think now, Tasemere, I have a whole network of other women that are founders that I would never have known before I started my company. I really tap into them to say, wow, how do I not succumb to this pressure? How do I make sure that I'm still living all of my values? How do I not try to emulate someone else or someone that I'm not? So I think, I think what's amazing for women, this whole idea of see her, be her, but that we are held to a different standard, and women of color, as you know, for yourself, are also held to even a tighter standard. So it's a, I hate using the word balance because that's really not the word. It's trying to just figure it out with, here's my analogy. It's like every day and you're a working mom, you have all these balls in the air, right? So some of that could be work, some of that could be your kids, some of that could be just, trying to meet everybody that wants to meet with you. I have to prioritize every single day, and every day looks different. So I look at glass balls and rubber balls. Those glass balls are the priorities that I have to focus on, and they can't drop. All the other things are the rubber balls, and I don't care if they drop. And maybe tomorrow they'll be glass. So some days, when I think about people that are like, I like you and I'd love to learn more, or I'm admire, or I'm inspired. I have to make sure I pay attention to those too, because they're really important for feedback and what am I doing well? What more could I be doing? How much more can I be doing capacity wise?
So when you got those first couple of members, how was that? How did that take me back to the very beginning when you said, okay, I have this physical space, which is beautiful. Like, I don't know how you picked out all of the furniture and the placement and the layout is like amazing. I want to sleep in here. But from doing that to getting the first like couple of people, what was that experience like?
Yeah, so building a community membership is really hard. It's way harder than I think I ever thought it was. I think there's a naivete around if you build it, they will come. And I've learned that over the last 3 years, but those first few members. So when I wrote the business plan, it was March of 2018. My goal was to open our physical doors by the end of that year. So I had about 8 or 9 months. That's a lot. That's not a lot in New York real estate, right? I had to find a space. I had to do negotiation of a commercial lease, all that. By the time I had done that, you're talking, that's July. Demolition hasn't even started. I meet an amazing founder and CEO of iFund Women, Karen Khan. And I said, listen, I'm not raising money, but I'm trying to figure out ways to raise awareness. And so is iFund Women a great platform because it's reward-based crowdfunding. Long story short, at that same meeting, she's like, hey, let me introduce you to this incredible woman that I've worked with that does PR and comms, Chanel Cathy. Chanel says, oh, I love what you're doing. What are you doing for PR to get members? How are you getting the word out? I'm like, what? I didn't even think about it. I was like so focused on the execution. So Karen and I and Chanel started talking, and I said, wait a second, if I don't need to raise money, but I want to open our doors with members, maybe we do a crowd fund where we're raising for membership. So let's just say back in November of 2018, our crowd fund launches, you say, I will donate, whatever, $1,500, and this is the kind of membership you get. So it wasn't a donation, you're buying a membership, but it was all marketing related. We ended up with over 100 members joining through that crowd fund. So the day we literally opened our physical doors, we had about 100 members.
That is amazing. And I wanted to touch on that a bit because I think there is this thought process that says, hey, you do it and people are going to flock to you. Don't worry about the marketing. Don't worry about the PR. Don't worry about the branding. Just build it and they're going to just come to you. But it is that like you can have an amazing idea, but if it's not implemented and executed and strategy isn't involved, it can just stay as an idea.
Oh, 100%. Again, it goes back to, I don't think I appreciated how hard building community and driving membership was going to be. we've always had the model since we launched to have individual members and then corporate members, because I truly believe that's how we move the needle in corporate. We can do volume there and work with them and invest in their pipeline. But it's hard. And everyone also thinks, well, not everyone, but I use general as hey, just do paid social. You'll get a bunch of people. Hey, just do an ad. You'll get a bunch of people. For us, it's all been, or the majority has been, really organic word of mouth, and that's what works. We've also built this incredible fellowship program to reach more women, particularly women of color. So thinking of, you've got to always be on your feet. If you think, one way is going to work forever, the customer is not dumb. And in our case, the member, right? Our members want things. You want something completely different than Tanya, who's sitting next door in the other conference room, or Laura, who's in the other conference room, or John, who's in that conference room. So you have to really take feedback. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't want to go raise money, because I didn't want to listen to someone saying how to build a community, how to get members. I wanted to do that our way, listen to our community and what they wanted, and then react based on that feedback.
So how do you continue to stay innovative? Because you have grown so much in such a short period of time, right? And so when did you have the idea to bring on the fellows and then expand globally? How do you stay like 10 steps ahead of yourself?
Well, the pandemic is definitely a silver lining for us. And I use that term because the first several months of the pandemic was devastating from a revenue standpoint. We had to shut down our physical space. It was lockdown. But before we even shut down our physical space, we said, wait a second, what is our differentiator here as a community? It's not just people coming into the space and working. That's one aspect. But the reality was most of the members came for the programming and the events and the speaker series and the panels. And so we said, well, wait a second, even if there's no space, people still want that. So we got a Zoom account, literally one Zoom account in March, and said, we'll try this for a little while until we go back to the office. Haha. And that has turned into, by May, we had to launch a digital membership because we had so much engagement from people in different cities saying, I want to join. How do I get involved? I also, at the same time, as we were starting to see that growth, and then in July, we reopened our physical doors. The fellowship came about because so many of our small business owners that were part of our community, as well as those women that had been impacted by the She Session, right? I lost my job. I had to quit my job. I had to cut my hours, were saying, I don't know what to do. I need help. And I said, well, wait a second. You've got all these big companies out there saying they're supporting women and women-owned businesses and women of color. Are they really? And I spent a weekend writing basically a whole business plan around what could we do to support these women that were impacted and continue to be impacted. And that the next day I talked to my COO and said, what do you think? She's like, I think this is a good idea. And then we pitched it. Our first one was to Unilever, and they were like, we love this. This is right up our alley. This is us putting our money where our mouth is. And they, in the first fellowship we launched, were supporting almost 300 women that had been impacted, all business owners across 9 cities, and 79% of them were women of color. And then UBS signed on, Verizon signed on, Indeed signed on. We just announced JP Morgan, and we'll announce 2 more between March and April. So just because the pandemic is slowing down doesn't mean the impact is. And we really want to be a beacon for women. We want to be a port in the storm. But we also know that as people come back and get back on their feet, that's when they have the opportunity to pay it forward. And, Tasemere, since the day we opened, has had a scholarship program. It's called an Illumination Grant. And for every 10 memberships that we were selling, we were giving away to a woman in need. So you multiply that. And so we've been doing this since the beginning. And it's just a wonderful way to see, one, our reach extend, because now we're working with women in 50 plus cities with the fellowship. but then also seeing how their businesses are evolving, how they're thriving, how their careers are changing, how they're connecting and collaborating, and most importantly, how they feel like they're part of a community that is a brave and safe space that allows them to bring their whole self.
So how did you think about the partnership piece? Did you just research these people and go for it? Or that's how you relied on your network to really help you navigate through that? Because I think, in my experience, I find that people are just like, you meet them and they're like, here's my business card. People don't really like invest in relationship building.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things I talk about is relationship building. I don't like transactional networking. I like to really nurture a relationship. And that doesn't mean I'm doing that every week, but you have to intentionally really invest in relationships. And so with all of our fellowships, actually with the majority of our fellowships and our corporate memberships, it was either someone in my network, someone that I was connected to, that I said, hey, can you open the door for me? Or this is what we're doing. There were other options where people were coming to me and saying, let me make an introduction for you. I love what you're doing. I love the impact. Many of our individual members that worked in companies saying, wait a second, how can my company actually help and do more with Luminary? So when you look at, and then obviously my network, right? It was a pretty strong network when I started. I mean, I had 22 years of corporate America experience. So really tapping into those relationships. And listen, you're not going to bat 1,000. Not everybody's going to say, yeah, let me take your call, but you have to take time to continue building. And I always look at that as a salesperson, as, how am I investing in my pipeline? Pipeline sales, it's all the same. It's relationship management.
I like that you said that, because I think people feel like, I hear in some of the entrepreneurs that I work with, right? They're like, I just want to be a millionaire and I'm just going to hire this person and this person is just going to make me a millionaire. And I'm on the other end saying, well, wait, like, people want relationship and not something that's like fly by night, right? Like, they want to make sure that your character is there, they vibe with you, they can trust you, right, to do what you say that you're going to do. And when someone puts their name on the line for you, that is more than money. They're like, we're in connection.
You are speaking my language, because think about if you are working, okay, let's just take a couple of examples. If I'm working in a company and someone says, hey, Cate, I know this person I saw this job opening. Can you make a recommendation or a referral? First of all, I'm not making a recommendation or referral if I don't know you, right? So I'm going to spend some time with you, because guess what? It's not just about that person. It's about my reputation, because I've referred that. It's the same for you. If you get a client referral, you're like, did you really want to refer that person? Thanks a lot, right? So always goes back to the source. And if you're not paying attention to that, I think it's a big issue. And for me, I am very protective of my relationships. Not that I don't open doors, and you know that in our first meeting, I want to open doors. That's part of the reason I started this. But I want to make sure that it's for the right reasons, right? I get a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, Cate, you work with JP Morgan or Goldman. Can you make an intro? Okay, first of all, what intro? What do you want to talk about? What's your pitch, right? Because I can also help cultivate that, right? I can also set up the stage, provide context for those of my connections. So I'm, as much as I want to open all the doors, I'm also very protective of making sure that you're doing the right thing. The last thing that I would say is talk about reputation. I want to have repeat partnerships, right? I do not like one and done. I don't like bullshit. I don't want to do something where I'm just slapping someone's logo on here, because to me, that's performative. I want to really work together, not just for this transactional opportunity, but to build a partnership and a relationship. I would say it's like a marriage, right? You got to both put into it what you get out of. And so That's how I think of partnerships. That's how I think of every client relationship in my whole, working world. I've been in sales. That's how you have to think of it.
I love that you were just so raw in that, because I think that when people see someone in the moment that they see them and the success that they have, they think that it came overnight. And
Right.
it's like this person put in work before they even became an entrepreneur, and then put in like double that work when only what they were eating was what they were making. So you know that they had to be working, right? And someone else wants to just get that by an intro, or let me rub shoulders with you, so someone sees me with you, then they'll think that we're aligned, kind of thing. Right? So it's like, no, that's not how this works. So I know we have to wrap up, but how did you feel about expanding and going global? Because now you have folks from all over the world are tapping into the digital platform. How is that going? How are you feeling about that?
Depends on the it is careful what you wish for, right? You when you start to grow and expand, you have to make sure you're there for every part of your community. So I think on the expansion piece, it's making sure we know what's happening in Atlanta or London, or our members in Paris or Sydney or Tulsa, right? So it's and community engagement through our community management team and Sarah Esmenda, who runs our community. That's so important, right? So, and then programming. We're excited about, yes, we're now digitally in all these great places, but how do we continue to engage? And so we'll announce in a couple of days that we're going on the road. So you're hearing it hot off the press. So we'll be in, we are setting up temporary activations in about 8 US cities this year. We'll start in DC. We're going to hit Nashville, Atlanta, Houston, Chicago, Boston, LA, Nashville, if I didn't say that. And so we're really excited because that gives us the opportunity to meet people where they are locally. Is that a city where Luminary should be physically?
Did I just get the scoop? I'm feeling like an insider edition that Cate just gave me the scoop. I am feeling like I'm part of the circle. I got the scoop.
You are part of the community, right? So you get the scoop, but that's something that we're really excited about. And then next week we have the March 3rd, we have our Women's History Summit, which is the first time we're doing it. And in the past, we've always done it with partners and like kind of participated with someone else. And this year we were getting so much inquiries and sort of requests from our own members. So we decided to do it. So lots going on. And then again, adding new corporate members and partners every day. So a lot to do, and I can't do it. One thing that I think what happens in this world of entrepreneurs is it's all about the founder. I'm very quick to tell people it's not. I'm one person. I have an incredible team that helps us execute, that helps us manage the ups and the downs. And I couldn't do it without all of them. Not one of them, all of them. And you see it when you're in the space, Tasemere, or you're online. So I want to make sure that they feel equally as much a part of the community versus just being a staff member.
I will say that being part of Luminary, you feel this, people use the word community very loosely, but you definitely feel like people want to know your name, right? They want to know who you are. There's no one that you can send an email to and they're kind of like, I don't want to know you. I'm busy right now. They're going to make time to get to know who you are, hear your story. They share stories with you about who they are. And that really thrives because it creates a culture of being friendly, being warm, right? Like you don't have to worry about like, oh, this person is going to give me this mean, nasty look. So I don't want to go back there. Or you don't feel like a place isn't your place to be in. Yeah, which I think that sometimes as women, we can feel like, yeah, maybe that's not the place for me, right? But it's like, why not you? Like, why aren't you going to show up?
why not? Who am I to say that someone shouldn't be part of this community? And that's why we have no application process, right? Because if you feel like it's the place you should be, physically or virtually, then I want you to be there. That's the whole part of why we have a community. We break barriers down, we don't put them up. And when you have applications and all of this, you start to create something that's exclusive. I'm inclusive, and that's part of our core ethos.
I love that. So one final question, and then I'm going to let you off the hook. What do you do to have fun and relax? You're busy, you're building, you're now going to be in 8 satellite cities trying to figure out if they what does Cate do to relax?
So in the old days, I shopped a lot. My bank account looks a little different as a banker versus an entrepreneur, but that's okay. Being sustainable. I love to travel. I just hit country 121, so I get a lot out of travel and experiencing other cultures. And I love my family. I don't have children. I'm not able to have kids, but I have 9 amazing nieces and nephews. I love to spend time with them, and I have an incredible partner. He is a grandfather, so I get to spend time with his children and grandchildren. And I think the pandemic taught us a lot, but one is that the importance of being around people that you love and investing time and being present. And I think that as an entrepreneur is really hard to be present because you're always thinking about your business. So for me to have fun, I just love being around people and my friends, and I just get a lot out of it. I get a lot. That's where I get my energy. And you've seen me. I'm energetic, to say the least. So that's what I do to have fun. Probably not the best answer because I love to work. And I have 2 cats, so I get a lot of fun out of them.
So, Cate, how can people connect with Luminary before we go? Because I could just keep you here all day, but I know you have to get back to work. So how can people connect with you?
Sure. For Luminary, they on Instagram, Twitter, all the things, including TikTok. We're on We Are Luminary. That's also our website address. So weareluminary.com. And then for me, my best place is LinkedIn. You can find me, Cate Luzio, CateLuzio. I'm also on Instagram. It's public. It's not fun. It's more about me and what I like to do. But my LinkedIn is probably the best place professionally to kind of find out what I'm up to.
Well, thank you for dropping by today. This has been amazing. And I got some insider tea that I'm excited about.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. We love having you part of the community. You bring a whole different level of energy, and I'm really digging the hair today. It's amazing. So being part of a woman's community, we can do that all day long, right? And really, I'm excited to just to support you and your business and what you're doing. And we can't wait to have you in a couple of our workshops at Luminary as well.
I'm excited. You got me. I'm there. But this has been great. I'm going to come find you in the space right now. And for everybody else, I will see you the next time we have the Blackout Live from New York on Saturdays at 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.